No, look, I'm fighting. I haven't boxed since March. I've been training for 4 months. I've spent 6 figures on a training camp in Portugal with all my sparring, and he was going to make a lot of money to fight Otto Wilde. So that's not how Dillon White rolls. He was more than happy to take the fight. He just couldn't continue. So we know now that he will fight Tyson Fury, and I expect the negotiations to be ordered for that fight at the WBC convention.
Would that be a stadium fight in the UK?
I think massive. I don't know, like someone just interviewed me then and said, do you think Tyson Fury will vacate the belt? And John Fury said, why fight Dillon White? I mean, this is what champions do. They fight their mandatory challengers. Is there anyone else in the world you believe deserves a world title shot more than Dillon White? I don't. You've got 2 Brits that could be involved in a massive stadium fight. Why wouldn't you fight Dillon White? He will think he can beat him, for sure. White will be the underdog in the fight. So you can't just sit out for another year and wait for the Joshua Usyk win. I don't think so. So, I think Tyson Fury will want to take that fight, and if it's ordered, he should, in my opinion, take care of his obligations as a champion. Joshua's been doing it for the last 5 years. Maybe we should have just vacated the belt and not fight Alexander Usyk, and had an easy fight. But that's not what champions do.
How well do you think he'll do against Fury?
It's a really tough fight. I think Fury's the favourite in the fight. I think Dillon White can beat him. I think he has, 1, he has great power. 2, he has a great engine. 3, he's unbelievably tough. He's not going to gas out after 3 rounds. And the style that Fury is fighting with, another question I had earlier was, do you think Fury is slowing down? I said, I don't know whether he's slowing down or he's changing his style. I don't care because I like what I'm seeing. 1, because he's more beatable, and 2, because he's much more entertaining. See what I mean? When he beat Vladimir Klitschko, don't get me wrong, it was a masterclass. It was so boring, that fight, to watch. His last fight was a thriller. And even the one before that was a thriller. Wilder 2. So is that because he's slowing down, or is that because Sugar Hill is getting him to be more aggressive? I hope it's just, I don't care which one it is, because it gives Dillon White, AJ, all these people more chance to beat him, and it gives the public a thrilling fight. Fury White will be a thriller. So will AJ against Fury, especially if he fights that style. And I think he will. I think he's getting older, and I think he's not, that herky-jerky feints, and I don't think that's him anymore. Great news for us all round.
You spoke to Dimitri Salita and their team. They obviously wanted an independent doctor approved for medical reports. What's the situation?
Yeah, I spoke to Dimitri Salita yesterday or 2 days ago. We've got all the medical information. It's been sent. The commission have it. They have all the reports. We provide what we have to provide, which is not a problem to provide it. There's nothing to hide. Dimitri's just pissed off. I mean, ultimately, he's lost 30% or whatever he was taking from the fighter in the payday. So I understand that. But as I pointed out to him the other day, when Alexander Povetkin pulled out of the Dillon White rematch with 7 days to go with COVID, Dillon White didn't believe him either. I did, because I knew Andrei Rybinski, and actually to a point where I knew he was in hospital. I didn't even ask for a medical report, but we have no problem. We've got the medical reports. They've been provided to the relevant people, and there's I said to Dimitri, I'm really sorry. If an opportunity arises for Otto Wilde, for one of our heavyweights, I will actively look for that. But if Dillon White gets ordered to fight Tyson Fury, which is almost certain to happen, I'm really sorry, but he ain't fighting Otto Wilde.
So is a small part of you then relieved that the fight is off?
No, because I've done my bollocks. Yeah. No, because 1, we've done a load of money on the show. 2, DAZN miss out on a really big fight and big main event. 3, I don't want Dillon White to have a year of inactivity before going into the Tyson Fury fight, which he will unfortunately have to have. And 4, I believe he was going to beat him. I'm not saying it wasn't a tough fight, but I was very confident that he wins that fight. So honestly, this couldn't be a bigger disaster for anyone, as far as I'm concerned. For Dillon, for us, for DAZN, for everyone. So it does. Yeah, people say, yeah, but at least now you're fighting Tyson Fury. He could have won on Saturday and fought Tyson Fury, and got paid in a fortune, and driven a load of subscribers, and had a great night. Instead, I have to go through the process of listening to people moan about us deciding to continue to do a show and give fighters an opportunity to fight, rather than just jacking it in and walking away, which 9 out of 10 promoters would have done.
So having already done your money, as you've just explained, is there any consideration given to bolstering the card at all once?
Not with a week to not with 10 days, 8 days to go, because you end up chasing your own dick. You know, and it's like, if that's even an expression, I don't know, but you understand what I'm saying? So what you're trying to, you know, we've got a good card. We ain't got a spectacular card. We've got an average Matchroom card. But when you make that decision, I don't cancel shows. Check my track record. I think one in 10 years. I think, and that was extraordinary circumstances. Because I'm not letting all these guys down. And you've got to rehouse these fighters somewhere. They've all trained. They don't get paid unless they fight. And better than that, my reputation is more important. If there's a young fighter or a young prospect that wants to sign with us, they know I don't pull shows. They know I don't take away an opportunity for you when you need it most. We've got a unified world championship fight. We've got a couple of great heavyweight fights. We've got Craig Richards in a good fight. We've got a thriller between Kamari and Castaneda. We've got good young prospects on the show. Let it be. But I do have to put up with, in that process, the understanding that I'm going to get trolled for the next 10 days with a load of abuse. What's new? Thank you.
And a quick one from me. With the whole AJ trainer situation, do you think we could see maybe too many cooks spoiling the broth?
Well, I think that might have been a problem. You know, I think I don't think it's a case of just bringing in another trainer to an already big team. I think too much information, too many opinions is not always beneficial. I think he's got a great training team. I think he's got great people. But Rob McCracken's more than just a trainer. You know, he's a mentor, he's a friend. But the trip to America wasn't necessarily an interviewing trip. I mean, I was in some of those meetings. There was no conversations about, you know, like, do you think, you know, it was talking about the fight. It was talking about their opinion of what AJ was doing right or wrong. And he has to come to terms with what he did wrong before he can put it right. I think the environment, you know, is good for him in America. He's under a huge amount of pressure. He can't walk out of his house without getting jumped on, without getting selfies, questions. You know, he was rolling around in San Diego just fresh. So nothing's decided. I think his next move is to go to America in a few weeks and do some proper training. Again, it wasn't like he did a little move around with Ronnie Shields, but he needs to spend time with those trainers. You can't sit down on a sofa and just have a chat and go, yeah, he's definitely the guy for me. And AJ's the kind of guy where he's got to be comfortable with his decision. But he's out there putting the work in, doing the research, and not sitting on his bum sulking.
What were you looking for in those meetings? What were you hoping to hear?
The most important thing, all I want and all I need is for him to be 100% confident and committed to what he has to do in the ring. That's it. So I didn't go there and say, he's your guy. You know, he's got to think, I believe in this guy. You know, because he got the tactics wrong. He has to take some of that responsibility himself. He's the guy in there doing it. But so have people that didn't get him to change. Before the fight, in the fight, you know, eventually it was too late. But at some point, you've got to say, no, you know, and I'm sure things were said in the corner. And again, you've got to blame AJ as well. It's not just a case of, you know, but you've got to have you've got to have the communication and the belief that when someone looks you in the eye and says, you have to do this now, that you do it. Rob McCracken, I can't say won him the Klitschko fight, but I'll tell you what, without Rob McCracken in the corner, AJ would never have won that fight. He sat him down at the end of the fifth round when he couldn't even stand up. When he come back from the corner after getting knocked down with a sledgehammer in the sixth round, and he looked him in the eye, and there's a complete trust in that relationship. Yeah, he still trusts Rob, you know, but it wasn't right that night, and it's got to be put right. But he's got to be comfortable. So all I look for is for him to have energy, to have belief, and tactically he's got to be sound. It's not just a case of go in there and you know, stick it on him. You don't just stick it on a pound for pound great and beat him. But he's got to add elements of what he's learned to the old AJ that was an all-out wrecking machine.
Did you perceive him bonding with anyone more than anyone else?
I think he got on really well with everyone. I don't think there was one meeting where he was saying, I don't like him, you know, or I think, and it was just chats, Danny. But he loved the chats. You know, we sat there with Eddie Reynoso in his palatial lounge in San Diego, and they talked about the entire fight, and he absolutely loved it, you know. And the next day he went to the gym, and Canelo had him in the ring for half an hour, and they were going through stuff. He's like a sponge. He loves absorbing information and knowledge. Sometimes you take too much information from too many different people. So you need to just be completely comfortable with what you're doing. And the trip was really beneficial. And it also lit some hunger in him, as you saw from his interview with Coogan. You know, he's hungry for it, which is exactly what we need.
Is there a front run in terms of location for the rematch?
I'd like to do it in the UK. Alex Krasuk is away. I think he's back next week. And then we'll sit down and start planning. But I would like to do it in the UK.
What about Chantelle Cameron headlining? She's
I mean, look, last week you had Savannah Marshall headlining on Sky. Next week you've got Michaela Meyer and Hamadouche headlining on ESPN. This week you've got Mary McGee and Chantelle headlining on DAZN. So women's boxing is going from strength to strength. It's exciting. And Chantelle Cameron is one of the most exciting out of all of them. But it's a real fight. You know, I mean, Mary McGee didn't like the fact that I was talking about her winning the whole tournament, Chantelle. But she's here to win. She's had it tough. Great story. You know, $100 a round, selling tickets out of her car to pay for an opponent. And now she's finally getting what she deserves.
See a potential future fight with her and Katie Taylor?
100%. Chantelle said in an interview the other day, you know, I kind of believe that I won't get that fight now. That is the fight that I plan after Serrano. Because if she wins undisputed at 140 and Katie Taylor's undisputed at 135, they have to fight. I've always said with that fight, when that fight should be a mega fight. And only now is people starting to realise who Chantelle is and she's getting the credit she deserves. If she goes through that whole division, she should 1,000,000% get the Katie Taylor fight. I just think, you know, fighting for him, it's not like there's no definitive end or there's no, you know, he just loves to fight. Back-to-back defeats are never good. Back-to-back defeats to a pound-for-pound number 2 is never the end of the world. And it's very difficult going into a rematch after losing with maybe a new trainer, and he's going to have to get everything spot on to win that rematch. I truly believe, with everything I'm hearing for him, with where he knows he went wrong, that he can win that rematch. If he doesn't, he's lost twice to one of the best fighters in the world. And he'll still have a huge career ahead of him. But you don't want to be losing twice.
Eddie, why is it now we're seeing a different side to AJ, where he's been so late?
It's not his different side. I just think it's how you know, people talk about letting his guard down. Not really. That's AJ. But he has carried British boxing on his shoulders for the last 7 or 8 years. And by doing that, he's had to behave in a certain way. He's a role model. He's an ambassador. He's a really good guy. But every now and again, he'll get pissed off. And I think he's now at the stage where if he has to show it openly, he don't mind doing it. You know, I think fans like it. As a very positive, probably the most positive response to an interview I've seen from him for a long time. But that's him. It's not that he was, you know, not being himself before. He was, but he was behaving in a way where he felt he had an obligation to behave in a certain way. I think it's good to see him show passion like that, you know, and I think he needs to win this fight. You've got to be hungry, but you've got to have the fire in your belly. I want him to be pissed off. I want him to be angry, because he's going to have to fight angry in this fight, not fight happy, you know.
That's the end of there, guys.
Haney and Diaz, we hope to get it over the line this week. Terms are pretty much there with the fighters. We're just tying up some bits with Golden Boy, and hopefully we can get that announced for December 4th.